What's up guys, I'm Josh Mosiman. Welcome to This Week in MXA, episode number 130, presented by O'Neill Racing. We did not race at the High Point National this past weekend, but we did get to enjoy it from the comforts of our own home. A little bit bittersweet. It would be fun to be out there at the National in Pennsylvania, but it's also nice to be recovering from the first 3 rounds that we did. So we're back at Glen Helen. It's like my backyard. We're testing bikes today, and in this video, we're gonna talk about the High Point National, Ken Roczen, and him showing up at the race. The Lawrence is taking over, and all of the craziness that went on there. Let's dive into it. Starting things off, talking about the High Point track. Wow, what a mud fest, what a gnarly track. I'm honestly kind of glad that I didn't have to ride that track. Ruts all the way across, and it's really hard to tell on TV how steep those hills are, but they are elevator shaft steep. They are just super, super steep, and that track is very European style because you have a lot of European tracks that are built in super steep valleys like High Point. It's one of a kind here for the US and for the AMA Nationals, and it provided to be a gnarly one. They got quite a bit of rain on Friday, but most people expected that with the amount of rain they had that it wouldn't be as bad, but the track was ripped ultra deep. They added in some mulch, they added in some sand, and it made out for a gnarly track on Saturday. One thing I want to point out is that we've had a lot of first turn crashes at Hangtown in the 450 class and also in the 250 class at Thunder Valley. And a lot of people, and especially us, we've been pointing the first turn crash, the reasoning for that, towards the metal grates. So the standard metal grates that they have in Supercross, you only have 20 riders coming off the line, but when you put 40 riders coming off the line in the outdoors with 40 metal grates, it's 1-to-1 traction, so everybody gets equal traction coming off the line. There's no gate packing involved, there's no strategy, and it really makes less of a difference where you are on the starting line. Before, qualifying times make a bigger difference because you want to find a good gate with good traction behind it and a straight rut in front of it. But at the first 3 nationals, they groomed the entire start, so there was no ruts coming out of the gates. It makes for really close racing, and it makes for a lot of handlebar contact, which is what we saw especially with that massive crash at Thunder Valley. This past weekend, it looked like the Pro Motocross crew did something to try to prevent first turn crashes, and what they did was that they didn't groom the ruts in front of the gates. Ken Roczen talked about it in the post-race press conference, that he was surprised they didn't because it was so sketchy coming out of the gates where it's muddy, the ruts were deep and kind of crooked, but by leaving those ruts there, it makes it more important which gate pick you have. It gives Jett Lawrence, Ken Roczen, the guys with the fastest lap times in qualifying, a better gate pick, so they get out ahead of the guys a little bit easier. Guys like me who maybe would have qualified 30th or 35th, you're gonna get worse of a gate pick. It's gonna have maybe more of a hole in it. The rut's gonna have more of a hook. What that does is create separation coming off the line and hopefully less crashes in the first turn. So once again, it was another Lawrence Brothers show. Jett Lawrence is 8-0. Man, this guy is incredible making his 450 debut. We all know he was gonna be good, but man, 4 overall wins, 8 moto wins. He's got 200 points now. You get 25 points per win. He's got a perfect score of 200. That is 49 points ahead of Dylan Ferrandis in the championship. I do have to say though, Dylan Ferrandis did look a little bit better at High Point than he did at the first 3 rounds. We got to take into consideration that he was off the bike for a long time during Supercross with a serious concussion. He ended up going to France to see a specialist over there back home for him to try to get his head sorted out. So he hasn't been riding and training as much as we thought. When he wasn't racing outdoors, most of us, like me, thought because he's quiet, maybe he's just preparing and training for outdoors. The team, Star Racing Yamaha, even said that he's focusing on outdoors and preparing for that. But lately he's came on to say in interviews that he didn't ride that much. He was off the bike for a long time, and he also didn't do a lot of testing with that new 23 Yamaha YZ 450F. So he was super comfortable on his 22 model outdoors. We saw him win the 2021 Pro Motocross Championship, and Trevor and I were talking, we expected if he was on that bike now, that he might be much closer to Jett Lawrence, but you got to take into consideration that head injury and how much time he had off the bike. But I do have to point out that he was a lot closer to Ken Roczen and Jett Lawrence at the very end of that 450 moto. He was only 2 seconds behind Ken Roczen, who was 2 seconds behind Jett Lawrence. That's very impressive for Dylan Ferrandis at the end of a 35-minute moto. Also, funny note, he's wearing his chest protector under the jersey now, where he used to be the only rider to wear it over, while now all of his Star Racing Yamaha 250 teammates are wearing chest protectors over their jersey. So kind of funny swap there, just something I noticed that it's fun to point out. Next up, we have to talk about Ken Roczen. How cool is it? This guy comes off the couch. He said he only rode outdoors a couple times, and he jumps into the Pro Motocross Series 4 rounds in after Jett Lawrence and everybody are already swinging. But honestly, this is the perfect storm for Ken Roczen. I talked about it when he switched from Honda to Suzuki. When you jump on a Suzuki, you have a built-in excuse because Suzuki hasn't been at the top of their game. They don't have the lightest bike, they don't have the fastest bike, they don't have an electric start. They're just at a disadvantage compared to factory Honda, factory KTM, factory Yamaha, factory Kawasaki. So that built-in excuse helps guys like Ken Roczen take some pressure off his shoulders, and we saw he did awesome in Supercross, got that win in St. Louis, and just excelled. He was in it throughout the whole season. Now, jumping into the Pro Motocross Series 4 rounds in, he has another built-in excuse. Hasn't been riding very much, hasn't been training and testing on outdoors. Raced it on a whim, decided to do it just the week before, and look what he does. He goes out and sets the fastest qualifier time of the day, and he runs with Jett Lawrence in both motos. Unfortunately, he had that crash in the first moto that put him out of second place. Obviously, he wanted to get second because he's trying to earn points towards the Super Pro Motocross Championship, Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious Championship, and Ken Roczen wanted those points to get all those points for the playoff rounds, but he ended up 7th in the first moto. Pretty impressive that he was still able to finish 2nd overall on the day, though. He really got lucky that Garrett Marchbanks had that problem in the second moto. Garrett got 2nd in the first moto, which was so impressive for the Club MX Yamaha rider privateer team. 2nd place in the 450 class, so great job to Garrett Marchbanks. But he benefited from Garrett because Garrett had that problem in the second moto. He ended up pulling off the track. He was dead last, and he came back to, I believe, 8th place. So very impressive for Garrett. But Ken Roczen able to get 2nd overall. Adam Cianciarulo, very impressive to see him. 4-4 for 3rd overall. But talking more about Ken, it has been a while since we've seen a top tier rider kicking their bike on the side of a hill, getting passed by 6 riders. It's been a while. We usually see guys on Yamahas especially trying to e-start their bike, hit the electric starter, and Yamaha has notably the worst electric start system in the pack right now. It just takes longer, it's not as reliable as the rest of the models, and we've seen guys like, for example, when Eli Tomac and Chase Sexton crashed together at Washougal, it took Tomac quite a bit longer to get the bike started than it did Chase Sexton when they both crashed in that left-hander. I believe it was last year? Yeah, last summer. So pretty long time since we've seen a Suzuki do that, but it is cool to see Ken Roczen putting Suzuki on the map, and it really makes me hope that Suzuki will update their bikes, add an electric starter, cut some weight, and hopefully add some more horsepower to their 450. But the biggest thing that Suzuki needs on their 450 is a new rear shock. The BFRC stock Showa rear shock that comes on that bike is no good. I have a few buddies who have been asking me about buying a Suzuki. I say, the bike's pretty good, except for that rear shock. You gotta get it switched out for a KYB or some sort of other shock on the rear. But Ken Roczen did awesome at High Point, and my first thought was, if he's doing this good, of course he's gonna go to Redbud and have some fun out there with the American fans in Michigan. But that is the first round of the FIM World Supercross Series, so we will not be seeing Ken Roczen at Redbud, sadly, and hope to see him at more rounds after that. He was very positive on the podium that we'll probably be seeing him outdoors again soon. Next up, we got a fun segment from last week when we were here at Glen Helen, where I got to meet Clay from DID Chains, and we taught him how to ride a dirt bike. Pretty good. Let's check it out. All right, guys, we are at Glen Helen, and Clay Solise walked up to us. He's from DID Chains. He's got a couple guys here with him from Japan. You guys are doing a little bit of testing right now, working on some exciting products that I'm excited to hear about soon, hopefully. But he said he's never ridden a dirt bike before. He's worked for DID for 5 years. He's the main guy in charge here in the US, distributing chains and working with all the factory teams. Were you expecting to ride today or what?
Was not expecting to ride whatsoever. Saw Josh, came over, said hello, and yeah, a little bit of communication, a little bit of talks led into I'm now fully geared up. We're about to go do some riding, and yeah, a little bit embarrassing that I've never ridden a dirt bike, given my title, but an involvement here in the dirt bike community.
You have some experience on quads back in the day, yeah. and you're here, you're ready to do it. So
we'll see how good if I can remember how to use a clutch or not. So here we go.
It's gonna be good. Yeah, you good with that? Right on. All right, cool. Start it here. And then obviously front brake.
Yep.
Out here you just want to be super easy on the front brake, super easy on the rear brake because it's slippery, you know?
Okay.
And not a lot of traction. You got the clutch, 1 down, 4 up.
Okay.
And then it like as we rode down the hill, it's because it's a 250 and it's a race bike, it's kind of jumpy off the bottom, like cracking the throttle.
Sure.
So just be smooth rolling it on.
Okay.
And yeah, just get comfortable, ride around, stand up, sit down, mess around, and
get my balance back and
yeah.
Feels very weird. Poor tensile strength on those bad boys. About went down there. Yeah, it feels much better in second gear. Yeah, still haven't died. Let's do a couple more turns here. I did it. Stalled it. I think my hands are getting tired.
Good job. It's pretty jumpy off the bottom.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
If I can get that throttle, I'd be all right.
Just yeah. It's pretty jumpy for.
Pretty wild. I gave you some good commentary. So,
Really?
Enjoy.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't lay it over, so that's good. Still in one piece. Already got a little bit of arm pump. Traffic was pretty light out here though. Really slick. Need a little bit of watering. Track would have been a little bit better, but yeah, gonna get a little bit of a break and go out for round 2.
I like it. All right, guys, next I want to talk about the Panic Rev Christian Motocross Camp. We are coming to Lake Elsinore July 31st, August 1st, and August 2nd. It's a 3-day camp. I'll be one of the trainers there, training riders on the track. We'll be working on sections. We'll ride the main track and the 2 vet tracks. Lake Elsinore gets some pretty good ruts, and we have a lot of fun when we're out there training riders. So 3 days of riding. We do camp games afterwards, like dodgeball and 9 square. We do worship and chapel service in the evening, and we all have dinner together. It's a lot of fun. 3 days at the track, you can't beat it. I look forward to it every year. We have a summer camp and a winter camp. So up next is summer. Check out camprev.org to learn more about the camp. All right, well, time to go gear up. Thank you guys for watching this week in MXA, episode 130. It's time to do some testing.